Uh, yeah, there was a couple of factors. One, it's definitely a young man's game, and age is getting the better of me. But I tried to have a pretty broad perspective on it all and think, one, if I was sort of talking to myself, if I was someone else mentoring me, what would they say? And the other one was, I feel like the club's got decisions to make over the next 2 or 3 years with the list, and I could make a decision easier for them. So I feel like I've had an unbelievable career growing up in Cootamundra in New South Wales. As a 10, 12, 14-year-old, if I could have dreamt that from 21 years of age to 35 I was going to have the life I had, especially in a professional football sense, I couldn't have wished for anything more. So, yeah, my wife and I were pretty content with where it was all at, and it was sort of nice that it came as a shock to a few people because it meant that I can walk out the door. I'm not getting pushed out the door. So that was one thing I always wanted to be able to do.
Something you've sort of grappled with for a while?
Yeah, especially over probably the last 6 or 7 weeks. We were driving to a game in Sydney. I'm not sure if I should share this because we've still got a couple of games left, but I cannot wait. I'm that excited to play the last few games. But we were driving to a game in Sydney, and there's a pub in Paddington called the Light Brigade. I'm not sure if you've been there or heard of it, but the team bus was driving past it on the way to a Friday night game, and I saw a few people in there having fun and thought, in a few months' time, I wouldn't mind doing that myself. So that was probably a bit of a moment.
Have you started thinking about plans beyond footy yet, or are you just going to let the dust settle?
I'm going to let the dust settle. I'm really looking forward to seeing what opportunities pop up. I've always taken the approach of upskilling myself as much as possible whilst I've been in the game to make sure that I'm ready to involve myself in whatever pops up. So, yeah, I'm really, to be honest, I'm very excited about what lies ahead. I'm not sure my wife has that as much excitement. I'm not sure if she wants me home a lot more or she doesn't want me home at all. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, very excited to see what comes next.
Sorry, are there a mixture of emotions at the moment? How do you answer that?
Yeah, well, all my family and friends keep saying they're shocked, so I'm thinking, shit, did I make the right decision? But I know within myself it's certainly the right decision, and to go out playing football that's still good enough at AFL level, that excites me, and that makes me pretty happy.
Had an incredible career. You can see that what's sitting right next to you. What does it mean to you when you look around and see the support of the people in the room here?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of football, and I've been fortunate to be at 2 amazing football clubs. I spent 10 years at Hawthorn, and we had a lot of success, which was unbelievable, but that doesn't come if you don't have great people and great support and great friendships and great bonds, and I'm sure a lot of the guys in this room realised that last year for the guys that won a premiership for the first time. If you don't have those relationships and bonds and that connection, then you won't be successful. So yeah, I consider myself very lucky to be at 2 successful clubs. I've been coached by Scotty and Alistair Clarkson, who will be 2 of the great coaches of all time. I've been captained by Joel and Luke Hodge, who will go down as 2 of the greatest captains in football, and I've played with some of the best players to ever play the game. So yeah, when you think about that, it's sort of a pinch me moment, and I consider myself very lucky.
You told your teammates this morning. What was the response? You said your family and friends are a bit shocked. Was that extended into the rooms?
I'm probably pretty happy, to be honest. I'm a bit of a pest around the club. There's going to have to be someone else now to take the mickey out of Scotty. I enjoy doing that. My wife does tell me that I've got to lay off Scotty and Lloydie because they do decide my career, but I got in first and decided it. So, yeah, there'll be probably a couple of guys that are very happy because they're young wingers and they'll be looking at taking the spot. But no, they've all been very lovely, and I've been very lucky to share some nice moments with them.
You talk about playing alongside some of the greats. Buddy Franklin, one of them, he's just announced his retirement as well. Have you been in touch with him to kind of go on a bit of a
well, he's sort of gone incognito, and he doesn't do presses and stuff like that. No, I sent him a message. Talk about great players. He's one of the greatest players of all time, probably the greatest player of the 20th century. 21st century. Geelong people might argue that Gary Ablett Jr. is, but he's been phenomenal for the game. There's probably been no bigger rock star to play footy in the last 20 years. So he did some pretty special things, and it's pretty cool to say that I was a teammate of his.
Just looking back on that period when you came to the Cats, was there a bit of an adjustment period to really fierce rivals? Looking back on that period, how do you look at that?
Yeah, well, I remember when Jonathan Segler played his first game for Geelong, I said to him, it doesn't matter what you do in the Geelong Guernsey, you'll never be the best player to play for Hawthorn than come to Geelong. I think Gary Ablett Sr.'s got that sorted. It was an adjustment. I've been lucky. Hawthorn was an extremely successful environment, and so is Geelong, but they operate completely different. There were times where I would see something different to Chris or the other coaches, and it was worth saying something. There were times where I saw things differently and I just bit my tongue. Not often do I do that, but there were times. So, there was an adjustment period. It was different. It's been unbelievable, and I couldn't have asked for a better 3 years. It's been challenging. I've learned a hell of a lot, and hopefully I can take that into the next phase of life.
Simon Lloyd described you as unique. Can you give us a bit of insight into that?
Oh, well, I think Scotty or Lloydie could probably give a little bit of insight. I just think on me, and that's what I conveyed to the players yesterday, that even though footy can be extremely challenging, there are times where you get challenged personally as a team, but I've always tried to do it with a smile on my face, whether I'm happy, anxious, scared, excited, angry. I've tried to always put a smile on my face and tried to be true to myself. And I said to the boys, if you can do that in your career, then you'll be pretty satisfied at the end of it.
You also mentioned special friendships. Is there one that really stands out from your time at Geelong?
Is there one? No, probably not. I've been very lucky. I'm not sure they'll talk to me when I leave, but I feel like I've got a lot of mates right now, especially looking out here. But no, not one. I've just been very fortunate to have an unbelievable change room, and we've had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to continuing those relationships post walking out these doors. So I caught up with Steve Hocking and Andrew Mackey on Monday afternoon and delivered the news, and then I went straight into Scotty's office after that, shut the door and told him, and I think he was a little bit shocked, which has been a little bit of the reaction, but it was quite nice to get that reaction rather than about time, mate, we've been trying to figure out how to get you out. So no, it was nice. We shared a nice moment, and it's something that I'll treasure.
Seeing one child here in Hawthorn gear and one in Geelong gear, how do you think you'll go straddling those allegiances once you retire?
Yeah, it's a little bit funny. Even finishing up here, and you play 10 years at one club and 3 at another, but I think Emmett will be a Geelong supporter, but Isla, Luke Bruce, is her favourite player, so I don't know how we'll get a Geelong jumper on her, but we'll try our best. It'll be interesting, but I think the beauty is you've got relationships at both clubs, and I'm going to be able to sit back and enjoy and watch intently, and I'm really looking forward to Easter Monday next year.
Ask your thoughts on the career that Isaac has had over the 2 clubs, but more permanently Geelong. What's he mean to the organisation?
I've always followed Isaac closely. I'm not sure how many people would know, but I was appointed at the end of 2010 as a Geelong head coach, pretty much right before the draft when Isaac was taken. And one of the first things that I did on official duty with Stephen Wells was take the drive up to Ballarat to see Isaac. And Isaac answered the door in bare feet. He knew we were coming, but still in bare feet. And it kind of, that sort of was symbolic of the approach I think Isaac's taken to his footy. It was very painful to watch him play over the next 10 years knowing that we just missed out on bringing him to the Cats. But it was just so nice to get him back, and we've evolved over the years, but there was an acceleration of that evolution when Isaac came, because he was able to embody to our players, especially our young players, that you can be highly successful, highly competitive and ruthless on the field, but also be a relaxed, authentic person off the field, and he's never lost that. When Simon Lloyd describes him as unique, I think that's the part that springs to mind for me. To be in the game for so long at the highest level and achieve what Isaac's achieved, it doesn't come easily. It takes a lot of hard work, and there are a lot of difficult times, not only for Isaac but for his family as well. And for him to take the approach that he's taken every day, he walks in with a smile on his face, makes a joke about the coach, which only he can get away with, and to have had that influence so quickly, like the 3 years. My sense is that it's been longer than that. Every time I say 3 years, I've got to pinch myself, because it feels like I've known him his whole career. And part of that is because we did watch him so closely, and he frustrated us as a Hawthorn player, and it just feels like it's been there's a bit of symmetry there, that he was able to end his career here at the Cats and have such a big impact. He'll always be remembered.
Timing of it come as a shock to you, or?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, in practical terms, our model is not one where the head coach makes these decisions. So I'm certainly involved, but our team, Andrew Mackey, Stephen Wells, Steve Hocking, Simon Lloyd, have been having these conversations, I think, with Isaac, and which has allowed us to kind of just go about our business a little bit more and focus on the shorter term, which we will still do. Like Isaac's talking about a few games. Our hope, it's not quite our expectation, but our hope is that it'll be longer than that. And Isaac, in my view, has a lot of footy or a lot of important football to still contribute. My view is that he could have played on, but even for Isaac to speak the way he did publicly today, but even in the last few days, about making the decision a little bit easier for the people at the Cats and thinking less about himself and more about the position of the club, I think speaks to his mindset. And I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we take his approach forward over the next few years as well. And even tomorrow night at the MCG, play with a bit of freedom and sort of play the way Isaac played. Whether it's going well or not, it's hard to wipe the smile off his face.
Could you be a legacy player, somebody that once they leave, they still will be
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he will be, but it won't always look exactly the same as the way Isaac's done it. I mean, that's the definition of unique. It won't be. The next players won't be the same as Isaac, but you can take little bits of the way that he's approached his footy, and I think it does reflect the way we try to go about our business. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We should take ourselves a little bit more seriously than Isaac does, but it's actually okay. It's possible to enjoy your footy and have a good time while also trying as hard as you possibly can.
It's been a signature performance, I guess, the grand final, an obvious one.
Well, yeah, look, I hesitate to bring this up because it might be giving away a little bit too much information, but the last two games of last year were a real contrast for Isaac. The grand final everyone knows about. He was a dominant player on the ground, won the Norm Smith. He was a huge part in us winning that game. Had a lot of the ball. The previous week it was a prelim final and the team played really well. And he was also a huge part of that performance as well, but he didn't get much of the ball. And internally, we rated that performance almost as highly as we did the following week. And again, like Isaac will remember for a lot of things on the field, but his willingness to play for the team, everyone knows about his power running, but there's a lot of stuff that you don't see on the broadcast, and you have to be at the ground and be watching him specifically to realise how hard he works for his teammates. And I think that's probably the lasting impression I'll have. The grand final probably would be number one, but that week before is the one that will stick with me as much.
Mentioned a huge rush tomorrow night.
mean, in theory, I always like to think that you can't give more than 100%, but it's more, it's less about effort, in my opinion, and it's more about, again, using a little bit of the way Isaac's approached the game, to inform how we want to play. And again, I remember Isaac playing in huge games. He's always been a player who has been able to rise to the occasion. He did remind me that post grand final. He finds a little bit extra for the big games, but I suspect that he didn't do it by reminding himself that he's just got to try a little bit harder for this one. He was a little bit, in my view, the opposite. Is look, more, I'm going to free the shackles. I'm going to enjoy this, and if it doesn't work out, it's not going to be through, a lack of creativity or, ability to express yourself on the field. So that's, I think, a little bit more the way we can reflect the way Isaac's gone about it.
In terms of tomorrow night, if we can just talk about the game, we saw Tom out on the track before, just walking around. Is he going to be out there?
He's looking good, but he won't play tomorrow night. But it's a good sign that he's making good progress, and we fully expect him to play before the end of the home and away season. Jack Henry, unfortunately, is having a really tough run. He's undergone surgery to correct a Liz Frank injury, so that's a long-term situation for him. That'll be 4 months until he comes back, but at least give him the chance to have a full pre-season. But on the flip side, it gives Shannon Neal an opportunity to come in and play in our forward line. We were really optimistic about what Shannon could do at the start of the season, and he just had some bad luck as well and found himself injured at the wrong time. So it's been a bit of a frustrating year for him, but you can have a frustrating year and come in and have a few big moments at the end, and it makes up for all of it. So yeah, we're excited about that prospect with Shannon.
Jack's injury must have come as a bit of a surprise for someone that might seem very confident he wasn't.
Yeah, so I mean that was the feedback we got. He got stood on. It was a difficult one to diagnose, and it was difficult for Jack himself because he couldn't quite remember exactly how it happened, other than he'd been trod on. But in actual fact, the contact wasn't to the top of his foot; it was to the back of his heel, which is a classic kind of compression Liz Frank type injury. And it wasn't until a series of scans were completed that they could confirm that. And but I think it's worth saying with Jack, he's had some trouble with his feet now. And his previous issues have been with his other foot, but they're all unrelated. He'll recover from this injury the same way he has from the injury on his other foot, and the professionals are supremely confident that after 4 or 5 months rehab that he'll be able to get on with the rest of his career. So it's not a situation where he has chronic structural issues with those feet.
No, just one more to add there before we're done.
Like it. Well done, Isaac.
Thank you.